So now it comes time to name these beasts, and naming is one of the least favorite things for people to do, but it's also one of the most important things you can do in helping to organize your character. And I have a system I like to use when I'm naming. I'm going to open up the Explorer, and I'm going to make sure it's set to Objects Only mode. And the way I like to work this is I like to just grab a hierarchy, right-click, and expand it. That way I can see the contents, and I can name them up before collapsing the hierarchy. So I have one basic requirement when I'm naming. If I just create some text here, we'll use this as a guide. I'll set it up so that we first of all choose the side, left, right, middle, followed by the bone name, so the bone part or the body part that we're trying to name, followed by the chain type or the element type. So I'll apply that. I'm just going to kind of move that up here so we can see it, and I'll make that a little bit smaller. So this will just help us when we're naming, just as a visual reminder. I'm going to delete this afterwards anyways. So if I start with the root, this would be the left side of the character. So the side would be left, the body part would be leg, and the type would be root, left leg root. When it comes to the thigh, left thigh, this is a bone. And finally we have the shin and the effector. This would be the left leg effector. Notice that the roots and the effectors have very similar names, the only thing being the type of object that defines them. This is very helpful because the effector is one of the objects in XSI that can actually, it's the only object in a skeleton that can be cut from its parent. So if you're stuck with a dangling effector and you don't know what it's the child of, you can just look for an object of the same names and drag the effector back onto it. So left leg root is the parent of left leg effector. I'll collapse that hierarchy, work on the next, expand, so this would be left foot root. This would be the left heel bone. This is the left ball of the foot bone. I'll call it left ball bone. And the left toe bone. Now this character has individual toes, so I might decide to go in and replace what I've got here with a more sophisticated skeleton, obviously meaning more bones, once I've gone through this. We'll just have to see how that goes. Again, in XSI it's very easy to replace body parts, so we can actually work this in to our exercise. The left foot effector. I'll collapse that, and I'll just kind of keep going here. So they're just built in the order that I built them, so they're kind of jumping around a little bit. So we'll call this the left neck head root. There's the left neck bone. There's the left second neck bone. Notice that I don't use numbers. That's just something I like to do. Anytime I see numbers, like the number 10, that just tells me that a bone has been duplicated. There's some other object that has been duplicated. So in XSI, objects cannot share the same name unless they're separated under separate models. So whenever I see numbers, it lets me know that there are duplicates around. Just, again, a nice visual I like to use. So this would be the left head bone. And this would be the left... it's not even left. I have to remember that the neck is not sided. It's running down the middle of the character. So this is the neck, head, and root, and this is the neck, head, effector. Momentary lapse of reason. Collapse that. Expand that. So we have the jaw root, followed by the jaw bone, followed by the jaw second bone, followed by the jaw effector. Collapse that hierarchy, move on to the next. So this one's a simple one. This is the rib cage. is a rib bone. And that would be the rib effector. Collapse that. We can start to work on the pelvis. Pelvis root, pelvis bone, pelvis effector. Collapse that hierarchy. The shoulders. So now we're back to the sidedness. So this is the left shoulder root. Left shoulder bone. Left second shoulder bone. And left shoulder effector. So again, we're following this side body part chain type each and every time. Collapse that. And start dealing with the fingers. So the fingers are where the real pain resides. There's just a lot of pieces here. So we'll just take our time and do this slowly. So this is the left index root. Left index bone. Left second index bone. And left index effector. Collapse that. Expand that. This will be the middle finger. Left middle root. Left middle bone. Left second middle bone. Left third middle bone. Left middle effector. Collapse that. Move on. Expand. This is the ring finger, so we'll call that the left ring root. Left ring bone. Left second ring bone. I'm just pressing enter and using my up-down arrows to move down the hierarchy. You can actually just arrow back up and then use your right mouse or left arrow to collapse the hierarchy. Open up root 10. This will be the left pinky root, left pinky bone, left second pinky bone, left third pinky bone, and left pinky effector. Collapse that up. Almost done now. We have the left thumb root. Left thumb bone. Left second thumb bone. Left third thumb bone. Naming can be a bit mindless sometimes. And we'll call that left thumb effector. Great. Collapse that down. 3 more chains to go. We have to deal with the palm. So we got the left palm root. Left palm bone. Left second. Palm bone. Left third. Palm bone. Actually, that's not a palm bone. That's just the palm effector. Collapse that. We have the arm chain to deal with. So this would be the arm root. This would be the bicep bone. The forearm bone. And the left arm effector. You'll notice that I actually hit a bunch of keys. Instead of hitting F2 to go into renaming, I actually started to type, and I started changing the filter. And the reason is because in XSI, scene layers, passes, selection mode, to switch between these different filters, they all have hotkeys associated with them. So just be careful when you're typing that you're not switching the scope of the Explorer. And if you do get lost, you can always come back to the scene root filter. which is where all your objects are located underneath the scene root. Finally, we have the ulna radius, so we'll call this the left ulna radii root. Ulna radii bone, and finally the left ulna radii effector. I can actually just delete this text file now because I don't really need that. Collapse everything up, and there are a couple more pieces to name here. These are, like I said, base constraints that are going to be replaced by more visually better looking icons. So if I find those objects, cube and cube 1 really aren't too descriptive at all. So I'm going to replace the name by calling this the hip spine base constraint, and we'll call this one the chest spine base constraint. And again, you can see I've got the CNS as a constraint type added there. Even for the hip depth, that's a type of constraint as well too, and the chest depth as well. So again, naming things consistently really helps us out down the line. Even when it comes to the vertebra, I can see that those are all duplicates. Nothing's stopping me from renaming these elements here. So we could call this vertebra, and again, vertebra 1, vertebra 2, and vertebra 3. So with everything named up now, we can begin the process of sorting out some of these icons, the visuals of them, and mirroring everything over to the other side. I'll close up the spine hierarchy here.